being here. Congratulations on a fantastic show. I've cheated because I've seen the whole series, and you guys are in for an amazing ride. I'm going to be really careful and try not to spoil anything. But whenever I have people as accomplished as any of you, I actually love to go back to the beginning and ask, what was your first job in this business? You know, when was the first time you felt you could call yourself a professional writer? Or,
oh, right, okay, I was about to say, my first job was a pizza delivery girl.
No, it's even better.
My first job was, when I was at university, I wrote a play for the local water authority about Dick Dipper's special agent when I was 18, and who knew there are so many water authorities in the UK, and I got paid £50 for each.
Unpaid?
So I was quite rich when I came out from uni, so that was my first paid job, but actually, yeah, that was my first paid.
You had a professional writing gig as a teenager?
No, I was 18. I was 18, yeah.
Yeah, that's teenager.
Yeah, and I didn't get another one until I was 28, so it took me time, so there you go.
Benedict, for you?
Heartbeat was, I think, the first thing I was paid to do.
Really?
I was still at drama school, I got a role on Heartbeat, yes.
That was before, you'd done stage though at that point, hadn't you?
No, because I was at drama school and I didn't do any acting as a child or a teenager, so yeah, that was
Wow.
a complete gig, yeah.
All these right out of the gate. It's like, and then Gaby, I mean, I've been watching you for years, so I know that you started young.
Well, Field of Dreams was the first film I was in, but no. There was a Don't Do Drugs with McGruff the Crime Dog prior to that, starring, I was 5, it's just because we had a friend in advertising and we were on food stamps, starring Drew Barrymore at 13. McGruff didn't get through to her at that time in her life. But it was probably the most fun I've ever had on a set. So McGruff the Crime Dog.
Did you pull on your experience with McGruff the Crime Dog? And then
I actually completely, I don't sit around thinking about McGruff, so I hadn't considered it until this moment. But I would have given a vastly different performance had I, and so I was going to sit here in deep regret and shame.
McKinley, for you?
Yeah, I went to USC, and when I graduated that year, my first job was Law and Order Los Angeles. Yeah, it lasted for a grand total of 1 season.
Continuing the long tradition of people making their debut on thanks to Law and Order, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing about going to New York and reading the playbills. Everyone has a credit from at least one of the L and O's. Well, again, congratulations on a really gripping and emotional series. There's so much going on here. I mean, you're telling the story of New York in the 1980s, which encompasses the AIDS epidemic, institutional racism, political corruption, mental illness, and as you saw from the end, you're using magical realism to some degree. Can you talk about the initial spark or inspiration for Eric and how you wanted to tie all these themes into one show?
Yeah, I mean, one of my earliest jobs, non-writing, was I came to America and I looked after a child in New York. And so my memory was this kid was always watching Sesame Street. And then just across the street, I could see there was a theater space, and through a window, I could see there was some kind of studio audiences and people queuing up. So that was, and I was in love with New York in the I came in when I was about 86, and I was sort of fascinated by New York, and it was the music, and it was the food and the culture, but I'd loved American movies, from Taxi Driver through to Tootsie, through to Kramer versus Kramer, which there's endless homage to that within this show, and there was that, but also I grew up in a theatre environment. So my dad ran theatres, so I was always backstage, and I was always seeing behind the magic, which was both a great gift, but also I never could kind of buy the illusion, because I knew how they changed things, I knew how things were made. So I wanted to write about a kid's perspective in this incredible city who lives with a kind of creative narcissist, and that was sort of fascinated me, and from that spawned Eric.
I remember when I saw the Muppet movie as a kid, and Fozzie had legs, and it really disturbed me.
It's creepy. It's creepy. Yeah, when they can move, it's okay. If they stay in the frame, it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to give him legs as well. And also, it was the first time I heard doing the show was a walk around, and I just loved that phrase. He's a walk around. So I guess Eric is his walk around.
And for the actors, what was sort of your initial reaction to the story? Because this is not something that lends itself well to like a 20-second elevator pitch. Benedict, for you get to be I know you've worked with the Muppets before. But here
yes,
you
I had a moment with the camera, which was a career highlight. I mean, it really was.
No, I believe you.
It was amazing.
So what attracted you to this role in addition to getting to be a puppeteer?
It was not an elevator pitch. It was Abby Morgan just creating and describing the entire world, some of which hadn't been written. I think it was I read 3 episodes, yeah. And I wanted to know what Vincent's deal was and where it was going to go for him and for the story in general. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful monologue. I just sat there in awe of this person's brain, her imagination, her humour, and I thought, well, I'm in. I'm completely in. I mean, it was on the page in the first 3, but just, you know, expanded into ever more wonderful, dangerous, unknown, and unfathomable as far as how I would do it stuff. I mean, every kind of lure you could want as an actor. And then Lucy was quite quiet at the first meeting, but she was already on the list because I watched the first episode of This Is Gonna Hurt and thought, who the hell directed this? It's brilliant. And so yeah, we talked more after that first meeting, and it was a very easy yes. I mean, no, it wasn't a very easy yes because it meant going to Budapest and being away from my family, but it was yeah, the rewards were worth the cost, and it was an amazing challenge.
We only see a glimpse of Eric at the end of episode 1, but as the show goes on, we begin to see him as a physical manifestation of Vincent's imagination. Can you talk about playing, in addition to Vincent, Eric? And was that an exciting prospect, or terrifying, or both?
It was both, and again, I guess that's one of the reasons it fascinated me, because I was working with an extraordinary actor and puppeteer in Ollie, who is inside the walk around. And for me, it was about kind of understanding what he was capable of doing, what the limitations are in that particular costume. The hips are very wide apart, you know, he's not going to be able to run, and I obviously sometimes wanted to run as Vincent, so it's about how to navigate those moments. It was about what he could give me that I could then parrot in as ADR afterwards. It was about us sort of talking about what inflections or stuff I might need from that to then recreate it in post-production. And he also, just as the generous, imaginative, very fine actor that he is, came up with fantastic riffs, fantastic comedy, fantastic ideas all the time. So it was a wonderful, wonderful collaboration, you know, but to begin with, I was a little bit scared. It's unknown. It's like working with another form of fire, like a child or an animal, and it was a whole new thing for me. So with a little bit of trepidation, but it was really enjoyable.
And I don't know if people could tell this. It took me like 3 episodes to figure out you're doing the voice of Eric. I didn't realize that.
That's good. Yeah, no, that is.
Did everyone know that but me? Yeah, okay. That tracks.
Yeah, no, it had to be connected to Vincent. It couldn't be augmented in a way. I wanted to experiment a bit with that, but I think Lucy and everybody was right to just kind of ground it in what I was capable of. And you know, I can only go so deep, so I can only get so much expression in there, which was hard. I won't lie. But I think it is important. You know, this is a real thing. I mean, a real as much as it can be in terms of Vincent's psychotic split and this shadow Jungian other that's tailored to his purpose, his soul, his mission to find his son. But it was real in the environment, and therefore there wasn't anything magical about what he could. It wasn't suddenly going to fly or turn into some kind of CGI effect, and his voice to that effect had to be as real as what you see on screen of him.
And Gaby, in this, you're portraying every mother's worst nightmare, every parent's worst nightmare, truly. What interested you in the role of Cassie and in taking on this project?
Well, at first I was hesitant because I'm a mother of 2 children, and it's the most fulfilling and important thing I'll ever do in my life, and I didn't know if I wanted to enter into this space psychically. But then I kept reading, and I felt Cassie getting her, you know, grip in me, and I became more and more sort of endeared to her and curious about her and empathic toward her. And then I read the entirety of it, and I realized that Abby was, I didn't actually realize then what I now know, which is that Abby had written and we have made a fable of sorts, a moral tale that is about things that I think are immensely important. And by the end of reading the 6th episode, I understood that we were telling a story about the state of being that we're all in, frankly, which is that we are living in a world where we have been kind of abandoned by the institutions that are meant to hold us. The big ones, City Hall, the police department, our government, but also the intimate ones, our family institutions, marriage, and they've been corrupted. They're dysfunctional, whether it's greed or racism, homophobia, inherited trauma, which leads to mental illness and addiction, and what happens when we're not being held as a society or as individuals. Our children become lost, literally and metaphorically, and so we are all lost. And all we can do is face that and dive into the depths of that darkness to try to come out on the other side and find the light and the love. And that this is a beautifully, wildly complex, constructed story and many worlds that's exploring the consequences of this state and what we can do about it. And the beautiful actress Edipero Oduye, is that correct in pronouncing her last name, who plays Cecile, says at the end of the show, we have to do better for our children and ourselves. And that's, if I can be a part of something that's saying those things in the world with these beautiful collaborators, I'm a very privileged person. So that was easy. And then I got to FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it is with Abby and Lucy Forbes, and I saw their faces, and I just knew that I could dive into that world if I were to be held by these two women. And then I got to meet these guys, and things just got
Just gets better and better.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
McKinley, for you, we're going to learn more and more about your character as the show goes on, including he's a closeted police detective, his partner's dying of AIDS, and it's really a beautiful love story that plays out. Can you talk about preparing for this character who exists in a time when he was not accepted on several levels?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that really excited me about the gift of getting to play in. Like the show, he's talking back to me, is beautifully weird, and that's a thing that in life and in art I'm really attracted to. And I was looking for something that I would be challenged by, but okay.
I think it's your Law and Order episode.
Right. Something I'd be challenged by, but also something, especially as a Black queer man, to get to live in the body and in the heart of a Black queer man in the 80s. For the show to be deeply interested in him as a whole human was really exciting. And because it's sort of set in the 80s and we're in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, there are all these things that he has to compartmentalize. And it was interesting to sort of note for myself the things about his life and what he's feeling and thinking and what he's managing and carrying that he has to bury on a consistent basis, and the few opportunities for those things to peek out and how that would affect how you feel, and to be in the walls of that apartment and have a very safe place full of love, and then every time you exit the doors of that apartment for it to feel like a hostile place. To be doing a job that he cares deeply about, but not able to be his full self in doing it. And for me, it felt like over the course of the 6 episodes, it's like a man marching toward his purpose and sort of embracing himself and loving himself and understanding that only when he sort of allows that to happen and steps fully into it, will he sort of unlock his full power. And I like to think that there's a sort of message in there and a gift in there, like just as a human, to understand that like to be the change, you have to first love yourself before you can give that to anybody else.
Yeah. And really his relationship with his partner is probably like the most healthy love story of the series, I think. Yeah. Abby, I'm not surprised to hear that you spent time in New York because I've been to New York in the 1980s and you captured just the feel and the look and I would say the smell to some degree. Like I could smell New York on the screen when I watched this. I was wondering how you knew this world so well. Is it just so embedded in your memory?
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You're always scared as a Brit when you choose to write in America. Can you get away with it? And I hope we get away with it. But I think that, I have to do a huge thank you to Lucy Forbes, our director, who I think has very exquisitely brought to life what I hope was on the page. The scratch and sniff version, which is obviously smelling. But I grew up loving those movies, and I think I'm not unique to that. I loved, Scorsese. I was, Nora Ephron. I was a massive, rom-com fan. She was a, damn went my great dinner party when she passed away. So, so I've always loved New York, and I wrote in 2010. I wrote Shame, which I literally wrote here in the Standard Hotel, and so I've spent a long time coming backwards and forwards over the years, and it's a city that I'm so captivated by and so excited by, and yet I think there are so many universal themes. So as Gaby rightly said, it's themes of institutionalized racism, it's homophobia, it's a mass pandemic where the world is terrified, wrongly, in so many cases. It's about loneliness, it's about low income, it's about gentrification. This is what the show really encapsulates for me, but it's also the city. And that felt very true to London in the way that it does to New York. And I guess, I still think some things are universal. So I feel like I was hopefully trying to write a universal truth. And then this incredible ensemble of actors and creatives. Alex Holmes, a wonderful production designer, Suzanne Cave, amazing costume designer. They really brought to life that. But the actors are the thing that inhabit for me and authenticate. And, they're my greatest love actors because they're the channelers and they're the true adopters, and I think the true creators of character. And for me, that was the most incredible thing to be part of. So I'm genuinely one chip in it, and that's not faux modesty. If anyone creative knows that, you can never. It's all about the collaboration for me.
Speaking to that authenticity, I'm not trying to be silly. I genuinely want to know, Benedict, why are you so good with American accents? Because our English accents suck. I'm sorry, with a couple exceptions. Oh, I'm sure you're all wonderful.
Well, thank you, first of all. You have to be if you're an English person taking one of your jobs.
I was next in line for this.
No, it matters a lot to me, and I work with Rick Lipton, who's pretty fantastic. He's Tom Holland, and that's how we met, and very particular about the era, the class, and all the other kind of worldly influences of this man to try and get it right. So thank you. I'm glad you thought I did. It's one of many things which, but it's inhabiting that culture. I always feel like a tourist. I always feel like I'm dipping in wherever the life of my character has been lived, whether it's more or less familiar to me. So it's just another level of integrating something that makes what I'm doing as near as an authenticity as it can be. And then, diving off from that a little bit as well. And there's a lot of freedom with this character to do that to some extent. It's a tough one talking to a crowd that's only seen one. No, but it's true. Like the joy, and I think all of us, we all carry secrets in this, and the reveals of the depths of these characters, the trauma, the reasons why, the causality behind behavior which might be off-putting and toxic. Like, I love the great world. I don't play easy characters. I have a relative at home who's she's a sort of slightly comic leveler of this thing I have about popularity contests and likability in culture. I think it's very dangerous for a start, but she literally hasn't seen most of my work because, is it another nasty person? He's a mess. He's tipping off the edge of a cliff. He's a narcissist. He's angry with narcissism, yes, but you see why he is the way he is. So does that make a narcissist? I don't know. It makes a human being, the ugly, truthful mess of it all. So the dialect's important, but all the other stuff is much more interesting to talk about, which is why I started talking about it.
It also makes us feel more seen because I think we're all messy.
Yes, we are, and we get closer to a shared consciousness if we admit to that, and culture can do that. It's a great canvas on which to see the ugly truths that make us human.
I mean,
Broad,
not me.
lovely, terrifying, wonderful, brave, different, ugly, beautiful, whatever, human, just human.
Yeah. I mean, not me, I'm actually cured. I graduated from therapy, but you know, I know most people.
Oh, right, you're one of them.
Yeah.
Luck.
I do want to ask Gaby and Benedict about the relationship between your characters, because I always think it's a little strange to throw actors together and say, like, pretend like you
We do like each other, really.
Oh, good, good. But this is a couple, you can see how much they've been together, for better and for worse. And how did you develop not only that dynamic, but with the young actor, you know, who plays Edgar?
It was extremely easy to jump into the deep end and have a huge fight with Benedict.
I take that as a big compliment.
I mean, I have a deep well of rage within me that I just keep suppressed at all times, thanks to my wonderful mother and her wonderful parents. No, seriously, inherited trauma. So any chance I get to express it, I will take. And now that I live in LA and not New York, where I'm from, where I can, you know, attack any cab driver I want for running a red light, I don't get a lot of chances to express it. Everybody's so fucking nice here. So when I showed up on set and Benedict was like, let's go, no, it was really, it was quite immediate, I think, that we both recognized that, one, we had this brilliant writing and this very solid structure within which to play, and the beautiful guidance of Lucy Forbes, who I cannot say enough about as our just the leadership that Lucy offered right from the get-go made me feel like, oh, okay, we can find this no matter what. But it was clear that Benedict and I were interested in the same thing, which was finding, of course, the truth and taking the time to find it. And Abby is so unprecious about her writing. It's really extraordinary, actually, because she's so damn good at it. You'd think she would be protective, but willing to kind of throw out anything that didn't fit or feel right or recognize that, like, for whatever reason it didn't land. And so we had a good gang of people who were after the same goal, which was something that was real and true. And once you have that, it's just a matter of time. It's just a trial and error. And that part, I think, is a lot of fun. And when you've got, you know, a castmate who's brilliant and game, it's like, that's as good as it gets. So for me, that was the juicy bit. And yeah, that was the beginning too. So we got to know each other real well as performers and actors and people. So then that makes the rest of it that much easier also.
Had you met before, or is this...
Nothing to add to that. That was very nice.
Yeah.
No, we hadn't. You know, we would sort of, you know, dropped into Budapest. They poured water on us, and we went. You know, it was a very short runway, and I think all the trust that Gaby's alluding to. I mean, I felt the same. She doesn't act; she just exists. There's so
deep well of rage.
It's just authenticity all over it, and it's a wonderful, elevating, game raising persona to act opposite, talent to act opposite, and we're not opposite. I mean, that's the thing. It is a collaboration. So just very honest conversations about what we wanted to tell of that relationship at different times, and we did shoot all the stuff in the apartment in the first couple of weeks. So it was the full gamut of the relationship, which is, again, you need to watch more episodes to get to. Quite a lot. Very intense, extraordinary drama to play out. And again, rather like the theme of losing a child, you think, why would you want to go to that? There is a beauty in where going through that darkness gets them. There is an honesty that comes out of that, an admirable kindness, actually, that it's a plot spoiler formulates inside, you know? And yeah, that's thanks to. And yeah, okay, I gotta stop talking.
Was there any kind of like a chemistry read over Zoom even, or did you just put two good actors in a room together and you knew it would work?
I don't know if you know this, Benedict, but Lucy and I went to meet you in a rather strange hotel because you were doing something in London. And we went to meet you in this strange hotel. Sorry, strange hotel, but it wasn't. And you hadn't arrived yet, and they took us down to this room where we were going to meet Benedict. And Lucy and I had this allergic reaction to it because the furniture was all wrong and it was in the wrong position and we had to get it right. And we spent about half an hour moving furniture in this room, lugging chairs back and forth. We were so nervous. And by the end, I think there was just, and we tried to kind of create this sort of almost like a grandma's sitting room by the end. It was very strange. Anyway, I remember you coming in, and as soon as you came in, all I could think was, why did we spend so fucking long moving the furniture? It's going to be fine, you know? It was just, yeah, I think, I mean, you know, inevitably Benedict's reputation goes before him, but also his performances. And so I think when we met Benedict, you know, the breadth of work from Power of the Dog to Patrick Melrose to Doctor Strange, you know, we knew that he could inhabit this world, and so we're huge fans. But I didn't realize I was going to like him so much and be so impressed by him. And Gaby was just, I've adored Gaby ever since Sleepless in Seattle, quite frankly. And, you know, I loved her as Transparent, loved You and Girls. And so I've always wanted to write for her. And for me, you know, McKinley was a completely new find, but as soon as we saw his tape, we were just like, oh, it's LeDroit. And LeDroit became bigger and bigger and bigger for me because of McKinley. Yeah, it was, his character became huge, largely because of McKinley's performance. And I don't think that was the question you asked, but that was the chemistry. And so we're out of time, and I'm the least, you know, interesting person here, so that's it.
There is a countdown clock right here.
So there's a pressure on
You
your
just know
deadline.
that's good.
Yeah, luckily I
I
have
gotta stop
personalized
talking.
that person. I actually want to ask all of you, and especially McKinley, because you are dealing with obviously very heavy material here, you know, very, very tough themes. And, you know, we see this couple going through it, but LeDroit has been through this for years, you know, and that has to weigh heavily on him, the cases he couldn't solve, and even the ones he did that didn't end well. What was the atmosphere on set like, and are you the kind of actor that takes your work home with you, or were you able to sort of like divorce yourself from it at the end of the day?
Interesting. I mean, ordinarily I would say it's quite easy for me to put it down with taking the clothes off. Like I hang it up with the clothes. But I think this particular show was a little bit of a hybrid because I feel like I was going through a lot personally. And it was the intersection of a lot of things that are all very similar. Like I right before we started, I was doing a production of Death of a Salesman, where I'm contemplating like death and family and what it is to not get validation from your father. I've lived a Black queer experience that is very complicated with my family, and so that's something I carry in life. And then my sister passed while we were shooting this, so like in a very real human way, I'm understanding what it is to mourn, what it is to lose someone, what it is to have all these things that are unresolved and have emotions that you don't know what to do with. So like to get to sort of funnel all of that stuff, the very human stuff, into something that was creative and something that I felt was worthy of my stuff was a gift, and in some ways I feel like it helped me process in a different way than I would have if I didn't have it.
Yeah. And Gaby and Benedict, for you, you know, you've played some tortured roles before, so I don't know if you have a way to kind of leave it, you know, on set at the end of the day.
I mean, we both have children, so you go home and that's it.
Yeah.
My family weren't with me, so it was a little bit weirder, but I would just kind of, it was the thing of putting it on and taking it off, and I really had to. It would have been exhausting, and I didn't have an immediate personal connection with Vincent. I guess that was something I had to imagine on pretty much every level, to be honest. And therefore, I think maybe slightly easier for me to disassociate at the end. And yeah, I just think within our job, the kind of present tense awareness of being in a moment, that sort of flow state, whatever you want to call it, that sort of loss of knowingness, an abandonment to just doing, is a very cathartic thing to do, whether it relates to your personal history or not. And so I'd leave it all on the floor, and then I would do something else with my time when I got home. Often learn lines for the next day. But you know, I watched a lot of films and I watched Boys, actually. I watched that series, Boys.
You watched The Boys?
Yeah.
That's on another network. So.
Sorry, off topic. Yeah, and I would fly home a lot to see my family as the schedule allowed. So that's how I achieve it.
Really specific actor question, but because this is such a challenging role in Headspace, would you stay in the accents all day?
Yeah, and I mean, I began with the same kind of ask of that I did a little bit with Phil Burbank, because he is sort of self-exiled from the normalcy of the domestic that he's making toxic, the professional arena that he's making toxic, the relationship with his son, with his wife, with the world. He's kind of isolated in his own interior pain and struggle and chaos, actually. And so to do that, to begin with, I thought I do have to have that slight separation. That broke down quite quickly, I'm afraid, because I was surrounded by really nice people. But I did try and stay in the accent. I think even when we were gossiping in tents off the side of the set, because like you said, I have to be good at it to earn the American role, I guess.
And Gaby, for you?
Well, I think, I'll just reiterate what's already been said, which is that the privilege of this work is that we get to dive deeper into our humanity every day. And, unfortunately, most people have to suppress their humanity just to keep their job. And so whether it's going through it's true, it's so horrible, really, to think about, but whether it's going through, like things you're talking about, the lived life you've lived, or the experience of losing somebody, or being away from your family, or just the trauma of being a person alive in the world, to get to dive deep into the experience, the shared human experience, every day at work is a privilege. It is a privilege, and it demands what I think we're all after, which is your presence in any given moment, just be here now. And so if you can do that, which I'm not saying I can at all, but that's what I'm after, not only are you getting to explore what it feels like to be alive every day and bring with you the experiences you might be having on any given day, whether it's something unimaginable like the loss of your sibling, or something you've been living with your whole life, like having to compartmentalize who you are, or having been raised in an unloving environment, or not having been validated. You bring that all to work and you get to explore it. Whether you know it or not, that's what's happening. And the more that we can spend time with those truths and realities in a way that's not fearful, but that is honest and loving, the closer we get to becoming fully realized people that are more able to be present in the world, and thus at peace and able to offer ourselves with love to one another. And that's the whole game in my experience. So if I can do that at work, and most of the time I can, and then I get to go home, and that's what I do with my kids, again, if I'm lucky, because they don't care where I've been and what I've done, then I get to be present every day, all day long, and then I get to be at peace, because in this moment, everything is okay, even though it's so hard, really, out there. Right now, we're all okay, right? And we get to feel what that feels like together, and that's beautiful, and that's being in communion, and that's what this work offers. So I actually had a beautiful, fulfilling experience going to set every day in this dark, miserable place that this woman was in, and then getting to gossip and gab and laugh with all these amazing, beautiful people. And then I got to go home and be with my kids and eat spaghetti and drink wine with my husband and laugh, and I felt fully expansive. I felt like I was living a full life, my full self every day. So it was quite wonderful, even though it seems like it should have been hard.
And I want to let people know, having seen the rest of the series, it's a beautiful series. It is thrilling. You'll be on the edge of your seat. There's it's not just relentlessly dour. It's very beautiful and life-affirming to some degree, which I appreciate, and funny in places, very funny. And I want to remind everyone that all 6 episodes will premiere on Netflix on May 30th. I want to thank you for being a great audience. Thank you all so much for being